Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going through my top 20 quarterbacks for week 14 of the NFL season. And let's just jump right into it. Starting off here at number 1, I have Josh Allen facing off against the Bucs. I've talked about this in a few other videos, but I really feel like we just got to throw away that Monday Night Football game. Totally different situation here against the Bucs. The weather, is unlikely to be a factor. And this is just a really solid matchup for Josh Allen. I feel like this Bucs defense has a reputation of really being a top-tier unit. It's not really there. They give up a lot of yardage. They do make some splash plays, but I do think Josh Allen is going to have a pretty nice stat line coming out of this one. He may turn it over. They may force some fumbles on some of his receivers or running backs, but when it's all said and done, I think Josh Allen's going to have a very nice game. That's why I have him here at number 1. And number 2, I have Justin Herbert. This may seem high to some people. Overall, the quarterback landscape has just been very inconsistent. The guys that you consider top tier at the position have had their fair share of down games. Josh Allen's had some rough ones. Lamar Jackson has had some rough ones as of late. Patrick Mahomes, his entire season has been rough. Brady had some down ones before his 4-touchdown game. So there is kind of a lot of moving up and down. Justin Herbert right now, coming off of a really nice performance against the Bengals, has a solid matchup against the Giants. So kind of just riding the hot hand here. When that offense is clicking, they are a top-tier unit in the NFL. After Herbert, I have Kyler Murray. First came back from injury. What I thought was very encouraging was how much Kyler Murray used his legs. I was someone who was a huge fan of Kyler Murray for fantasy coming into the season because I thought he had that top-tier rushing upside up there with guys like Lamar Jackson, not quite to that extent, but someone who could kind of rival that. But early in the season, he really just did not rely on his legs, which definitely limited his overall upside for fantasy. If he can start to get back to that, we know he has the weapons around him, and we know he is a very competent thrower of the football. So a high-end QB1 moving forward. And number 4, I have Tom Brady. I'm not super scared of this Bills defense. We know that secondary took a big hit with Tre'Davious White out for the season. So I think, this Bucs offense, arguably the best unit in the league. I think Tom Brady is still going to have a lot of success. Then at number 5, I have Dak Prescott, just someone who's locked in as a mid to high-end quarterback one option every single week. At 6, I have Lamar Jackson. It hurts to have him this low, but overall, he has just not played well. We know he has that rushing upside, but I just got to see one game of him kind of getting that passing success back, and then he can rise up these rankings again. But a lot of interceptions the last few games, and not interceptions where he's getting kind of unlucky like guys like Brady or Mahomes have this season, just really bad decisions, just kind of launching it up for anyone to take. So just one solid bounce back game, and then he'll be right up there with the Tom Bradys, the Kyler Murrays, the Herberts, and the Josh Allens moving forward. Then we've got Aaron Rodgers at number 7. After that week 1 meltdown to the Saints, he has just been a very safe, consistent option as a fantasy quarterback. He's not going to have that high-end QB1 potential because he doesn't have the rushing upside and he doesn't have the overall volume and touchdown numbers like a guy like Tom Brady, but he's going to, find a nice home as a mid-tier quarterback one every single week. After A-Rod, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Mentioned him a little bit earlier. Definitely struggling so far this season. Everyone kind of thought the Chiefs' offense, were kind of back in the rhythm after they just dominated the Raiders. They do face off against the Raiders again, so maybe they kind of find some similar success. But the last 5 or 6 games, that was really the only solid performance from him on a fantasy football level. So I don't really have any reason to put him higher than this number 8 spot, but we know he has that ceiling on a week-to-week basis. Number 9, Matthew Stafford. He's going up against the solid Cardinals defense, but I still think he's someone you can rely on as a mid to back end QB1. At number 10, going with Taysom Hill. This one's a little bit scary just because I don't think he's that good of an overall quarterback. I think he's actually probably a fairly bad quarterback, but for fantasy, we know he has that rushing upside. He's still dealing with some finger problems, but it looks like he is going to get the nod again to be the starting quarterback. And even if he can't throw the ball that effectively, it looks like he's going to have Kamara back, should take some pressure off him. And he still finished with a fairly solid, fantasy stat line while throwing 4 interceptions. That is very impressive. So a back-end quarterback one, I think is a fitting spot. At 11, I have Kirk Cousins. Always kind of falls in this back end QB1 range. He takes a little bit of a hit, losing Adam Thielen, his number 2 weapon, but I still think he's someone you can rely on. Number 12, I have Russell Wilson. I'm not totally sold that this offense is back, but they definitely took a fairly solid step forward in week 13. So, quarterback 12, that's still a QB1. Give me one more week, and then he can kind of jump in there, potentially in the top 10 range. Then moving on to the QB2s, I have Joe Burrow kicking it off here at number 13. Just a very safe option, fringe QB1 every single week. At 14, I have a Derek Carr. Early in the season, the Chiefs defense was just not stopping anyone. Now they've gotten a little bit better. They're on a little bit of a roll. I still think Derek Carr is, a solid option, but he's not someone I love, this week and probably rest of season. He just doesn't have the solid weapons around him. It would definitely help if Darren Waller was back, but that one may be like a 50-50, maybe even honestly less of a chance of him playing. So maybe he moves up if Waller returns, but he's probably going to stay in the same general area. At 15, I have Cam Newton, and I think this is kind of where we fall off. I don't have a lot of trust here with Newton. The thing is, he just has a much higher ceiling than all the guys behind him. You can see Taylor Heineke, Ryan Tannehill, Jimmy Garoppolo. If Cam Newton plays a half-decent game as an NFL quarterback, not fantasy-wise, just, a serviceable job at quarterback, he is going to deliver a great fantasy game because he has that rushing upside. The issue is his floor is just so low, and we saw it in week 12 before their bye. He just self-destructed, so that's always in the realm of possibility, but he could also go out there and put together, like a 200-yard passing game, rush into touchdown, throw for one, rush like 40 to 50 yards, and you're looking at a great performance. Then we've got Taylor Heineke, just consistently kind of falls in this mid-tier quarterback 2 group. Ryan Tannehill at number 17. He has been very disappointing so far this season, but he does get Julio Jones back, so one of his top 2 weapons makes that wide receiver core at least a little bit more respectable. Jimmy G at 18. He honestly hasn't been the worst fantasy option. You just don't really trust the talent. He doesn't have really any rushing upside, and we know this team wants to be run first. They may be without Elijah Mitchell, so we'll see how that kind of shakes up this offense. Justin Fields looks like he will be getting the start for the Bears. Tough kind of matchup against the Packers at Lambeau, prime time. Not exactly, the easiest environment to return from injury from, but still, don't have a ton of faith here. He's shown some ups and downs, and overall, he's just not been placed in a position to succeed right away. And then at number 20, Ben Roethlisberger, back end, quarterback 2 play. He can get it done on some weeks, but overall, you just don't really have a lot of trust in him. That is going to wrap it up for my top 20 quarterbacks. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.